In this demo, we'll show how Anaplan can help universities model future student headcount in different ways, ultimately contributing to long-term profitability. The idea is to integrate this model with the wider fee income planning universities are engaged in, but with the added benefits of long-range scenario analysis and what-if capabilities. This way you can explore strategies to maximize long-term student revenue. Anaplan is a cloud-based planning platform, accessible on any device and through any web browser, including a dedicated mobile app for iOS and Android devices. The user experience is provided through these self-serve dashboards, which empower users to access data independently and eliminating the need for finance to provide people with this information. They are interactive and use security, so that means you can build out a core set while restricting data visibility based on a user's role. Everything in Anaplan, including the dashboards, uses drag and drop functionality. No scripting, no coding. Here I'm showing how simple it is to drag and drop on new grids of information or new charts and move existing ones around. So these dashboards are used for everything from these high-level cockpit or BI style scorecards that you see here, through to the more classic looking Excel grids or views. In this example here, you can see we have a simple view with our departments in our rows and our time periods going along in the columns. On this analysis screen, you can also see the other hierarchies that we've built into this model as drop-downs on our dashboards. So here we can slice our data by our faculties or down to departments, our years, out multiple years for long-range planning, by cohort, by fee status, which also can go down to a country level, by level of study, and also by scenario, which we'll go into a bit more detail later. So what Anaplan will allow you to do, for instance, is select a level of study and it will show you the underlying data. Or I can choose a total to get automatic aggregation. This is in contrast to Excel, where data is duplicated across multiple tabs and requiring manual consolidation. Much like in Excel, a user can quickly pivot this view to analyze the data in a different way. Here I could bring down maybe both level of study and fee status into my rows to give me a different view, different slice of that data. Once you've built the logic, the dashboards, the hierarchies, Anaplan offers complete flexibility by enabling you to add additional hierarchies to these seamlessly and also adjust existing models without having to do any kind of rebuild work. So those same grids of data that I was pivoting on previously have been turned into this reporting dashboard like this, where we can layer on visuals to make the data stand out. In this case, what we're looking at is our forecasted headcount, and this is our starting point within the model. It's our baseline of forecasted student numbers split by cohort, study level, fee status, etc. over the next 5 or so years. And we're just presenting various different ways that we can slice this data. Our headcount then converts into forecast revenue, and this gives us our baseline revenue for our forecasted student numbers. So to begin planning, so here in planning we can start to model for adjustments to these base student numbers. Here I can model against any year in the future, but let's say I want to make adjustments for financial year FY27. Obviously within Anaplan we can have as many scenarios in the model as we need, and we can easily add new ones using buttons on dashboards such as this. So I'm going to add a new scenario. I'm going to call it an upside scenario, and this one is going to be modeling for various upsides. Now Anaplan immediately creates that blank scenario, but it takes on our base forecast as a starting point for the modeling. And each one of these scenarios that we hold here is essentially a sandbox environment for us to model with. Now on the right hand side of this particular planning dashboard, we have some of the assumptions and adjustments that we can make. And the results of these adjustments are then immediately displayed in this grid here in real time. And it will provide the changes to our headcount and the changes to our revenues. Now for our economics department here, let's say that I want to model for some increases in students joining. So maybe I want to model for 5% increase in undergraduates joining economics in FY27 and maybe 3% increase in postgraduates. Maybe we also choose that finance and accounting is actually going to be 2% lower for undergraduates. Now immediately we can see the impact of this. If we look at economics, for instance, we can see that we've got an additional 60 students split between home and international. That's also split between undergraduate and postgraduate. So of those 60, 37 new students will be undergraduate students. And that is split between home and international based off our weighting down here, which is 64% home, 36% international. And that results in an increase in revenue in the economics department of 501,000. And all of this information can be displayed in this text box here using dynamic text. We can also adjust the split between our home and international students. So maybe if we want to target maybe additional international students on our economics department, maybe I'll increase this split to be 40% versus 60%. This will only change the split for our additional forecasted students. So what we're seeing now is we still increase our student headcounts by 37, but that's going to drive greater revenues now. So now revenues of 526,000. Later, we're going to look at how Anaplan can guide us on which countries we should be targeting for our international students as well. Now, as I'm making these adjustments to headcount, we can see here how it impacts income. But as our costs are linked directly to the headcount in this model, this is also causing a proportional impact on cost as well. If I go down to the bottom here, we can see a breakdown of this by cohort. So we can see our 37 new students that are joining as cohort 1. These are first year students. We can see the number of students in cohort 2, and this is our second year students, and cohort 3 being our third year students, etc. So these are just some of the adjustments that we can make to a scenario, and all of these adjustments, if we want, can be grouped into a single view. So here on a single dashboard view, we are displaying all the variables that can be adjusted for both our revenues as well as our costs. The adjustments that we already made earlier by department and by fee status, we've already looked at, although in this view, I've pivoted the data so now I can see all the years in our model displayed, so I can quickly model for changes year over year, for instance. Beneath that, we have adjustments around tuition fees. These are driven by percentages and again split across all of those hierarchies. So as part of my upside, I might want to look at increasing international undergraduates, their tuition fees by an additional 10%, and we can then model what impact that's going to have on our income. From a cost side, we can look at making adjustments to teaching costs. So what we're doing here is we're looking at our current student to teacher ratios, with economics currently having a ratio of 44 students to 1 teacher. Now, due to the increase in the modeling that we've done, we're now having more students within this particular department, and that actually has adjusted our ratio. So now we actually have 46 students to every 1 teacher. We may decide for modeling purposes this is fine, in which case we can leave this as is and our teaching costs won't increase. But we may decide that this ratio is too high, and we can quickly tick a box to maybe model what if we kept the same 44 students to a teacher ratio, in which case we would need to hire an additional 2 teachers. And the cost of this is immediately reflected within this model, assuming an average salary for a teacher within that department. If we don't want to maintain the exact same ratio, we could also type in our ratio here. So I might do it as 45:1, in which case we'd need to hire one additional teacher. And as mentioned for our teachers' salaries, we bring through an average cost here and we can flex this up or down with simple percentages. The same goes with our utilities costs, here split by different campuses, and we can again use percentages to adjust those costs. And then finally, we have costs here to recruit the students in various geographies. So in this case, it's split by country, and that way we can model for where we want to focus our marketing efforts. And these numbers could be very easily linked to any marketing plans that you hold within Anaplan. Bear in mind what I've shown here is only examples for the ways that you could model for changes in any revenue, any cost. And you could also take this down to a more granular level and hold maybe more costs by country of origin of student, as we've shown here with those recruitment costs, things like course material costs or maybe student welfare costs as well. So we've shown there we have the ability to very quickly adjust drivers and see the impact. And because we have that scenario hierarchy running right the way through our model, we can very quickly start modeling for some what-if scenarios, and the results of which can be seen in real time on dashboards like this. So in this example, we can quickly compare all of our scenarios against each other. Here, selecting which scenario we want to look at as scenario A and which scenario we want to look at as scenario B. Then we're splitting the results by our core hierarchies, so split by fee status, level of study, and also by our departments and faculties. For very quick modeling, I can quickly perform a copy of an existing scenario onto another. So as it stands, scenario 10 is actually an empty scenario, and we have our upside scenario that we've just been modeling against. So if I want to copy my upside onto scenario 10, I can very quickly do this within Anaplan. So now we have an exact clone across two different scenarios, and we can now quickly go off and model for changes between our upside scenario and scenario 10. So if I go back to my adjustments, so now against scenario 10, what if I modeled for a 10% growth in postgrads in FY27? Maybe we're going to aim for 100% of those to be international. Maybe there's going to be a 5% growth in our tuition fees, but maybe we're going to increase the salaries of our economics tutors by 10%. And now we can immediately see the comparison of my revenues and my profit between my upside scenario and scenario 10 that I've just made some adjustments to on that previous screen. And all of that takes place in real time. As mentioned previously, our analysis can go down deeper into the countries that our students are coming from. In this example, we are modeling for a return on our investment. So we're able to compare the cost to recruit students versus the revenue that we're going to generate from them over their time on the course. So here by country, we can see our recruitment costs from our assumptions, the lifetime value, and the number of heads that we are recruiting as students. Then we have a simple ROI calculation working out the multiples as well as an ROI per student. Our map is then highlighting these countries using conditional formatting so we can see which countries are best to recruit from. Now here, for an undergraduate on the economics course or the economics department, the country that we should be targeting most is China, as that gives us the highest ROI per student. closely followed by the United States. And this kind of analytics helps to focus where our marketing activity should lie. Now, taking this a step further, we can rank the countries based on any KPI to help focus our strategies. And because these rankings are dynamic, as I choose different levels within my hierarchy, such as maybe finance and accounting, I now see dynamically update, and in terms of an ROI, the United States would be the best place to target for finance and accounting students. So in summary, Anaplan provides a robust and user-friendly platform for universities to model their student headcount, conduct scenario analysis, and optimize revenue and costs. The demonstrated features empower institutions to make informed decisions, align resources strategically, and achieve long-term profitability.